Welcome to your own personalized deep dive, into a world full of things we can't explain. Today, we're exploring two mysteries that have captivated us for centuries. They're disappearances that have left behind more questions than answers. Get ready to unravel the stories of the Lost Colony of Roanoke and the vanishing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
What's really fascinating about these cases is that even though they're separated by centuries, they both show us the limits of our understanding. Even with all our technology and investigative tools, some mysteries just stay unsolved, reminding us that the universe still holds secrets we may never know.
It is humbling, yeah, that even with instant information and global connectivity, there are still events that baffle us. So let's rewind the clock way back to the late 16th century and journey to Roanoke Island. It's this small piece of land off the coast of what's now North Carolina. It's 1587 and 115 English settlers, led by John White, arrive with dreams of a new colony in the New World.
This was a really bold and perilous thing to do. Remember, this was a time of exploration and colonization full of risks and uncertainties. Trying to make a home in a new land, especially one with indigenous populations, was a gamble with really high stakes.
And a gamble it was. White leaves the colonists to go back to England for supplies, expecting to be back in just a few months. But when he finally gets back 3 years later, the whole colony is deserted. No settlers, no signs of a struggle, just an eerie silence and one word carved into a post. CROATOAN.
That one word, like a whisper from the past, is the center of this enduring mystery. It's the name of a nearby Native American tribe, and it's led to centuries of speculation about what happened to those colonists. What happened to them? Where did they go? The silence of Roanoke Island just makes you ask even more questions.
Yeah, it's chilling. A whole community vanishes, leaving behind just this one word. It's like a real-life historical thriller. So what are some of the leading theories that try to explain this baffling disappearance?
Well, one theory is that the colonists, maybe facing hardship or driven by a bad storm, chose to relocate. Maybe they went looking for better land, resources, or even tried to join the CROATOAN tribe, the name on the post.
Right, that makes sense. If they were desperate, they might have needed help or to find a better place to live. But is there any evidence that backs up this relocation theory? Did they just pack up and disappear into the wilderness?
Here's where the mystery gets deeper. Even with a lot of archaeological investigations, there's no concrete evidence of a mass relocation to CROATOAN territory or anywhere nearby. No signs of a settlement. No artifacts that connect them to a specific location.
So more questions than answers. What about a hostile attack? We know there were tensions between the English settlers and some Native American tribes then. Could that be the reason they vanished?
It's definitely a plausible theory, especially when you think about the historical context of conflict between colonists and indigenous peoples. But what's strange is that there's no physical evidence of a fight. No signs of a struggle, no mass graves, no artifacts that would suggest there was a battle.
It's like they vanished into thin air. No trace of what happened to them. So if relocation and attack are unlikely, is there anything else historians and researchers have thought about?
There is. It's a more interesting but equally confusing theory. It suggests that the colonists might have slowly become part of local tribes. Maybe they merged with the CROATOAN people. This theory comes from later reports of people who look European living among Native American groups in the area.
That's a fascinating idea, a more peaceful, maybe even a more mysterious ending to their story. Instead of dying from hardship or violence, they might have joined a new culture and slowly lost their English identities as they adapted to a new way of life.
Exactly. And it makes us think about how complex cultural exchange can be and how different groups might have interacted during a time of exploration and colonization. But in the end, because there's no definitive evidence, the mystery of Roanoke is still open to interpretation.
It really shows how even seemingly straightforward historical events can have so much uncertainty. We may never know for sure what happened to those 115 people who vanished from Roanoke Island. Their story stays an enigma, a haunting reminder of a time when the world was much more mysterious than it is now.
And while we think about the mystery of Roanoke, a much more recent disappearance, one that happened in our modern world of technology and surveillance, reminds us that the unknown can still happen in our world.
You're talking about the vanishing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, right? It's a case that feels like it was taken straight from the headlines, a mystery that has gripped the world since 2014. It's almost impossible to believe that today, with satellite tracking and constant communication, a huge Boeing 777 could just disappear.
The disappearance of Flight MH370 on March 8, 2014 is a truly baffling enigma. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur with 239 passengers and crew heading for Beijing. Everything seemed normal until, about 40 minutes into the flight, all communication with the plane was lost. And it wasn't just a temporary problem. The plane, with all its advanced technology and communication systems, just vanished from radar screens.
Imagine the shock and disbelief, not just for the families of those on board, but for everyone. In a time when we can track packages moving across the world in real time, a big passenger jet disappearing is crazy. It makes us question all our technology and our ability to see what's happening in the world.
Exactly. And what makes it even stranger is the massive search that happened afterward. Multiple countries joined forces using the most advanced technology, including satellite data analysis and underwater sonar to look over huge areas of the ocean. But even with all that, the plane is still missing. It's like it went through a crack in reality and we just can't find it.
It's a chilling thought that something so big, so technologically advanced could just vanish. But here's where it gets even more bizarre. The satellite data, instead of showing us where the plane crashed, showed something we didn't expect at all. The plane, instead of going to Beijing, veered way off course, heading south into the remote and dangerous southern Indian Ocean.
That unexpected change in direction brings up so many new questions. How could a modern commercial plane with autopilot and all kinds of navigation systems just suddenly change course without sending any distress signals? Why were there no messages, no calls from anyone on board to say there was a problem? The silence from Flight 370 only deepens the mystery.
It's a puzzle with so many missing pieces, so many unanswered questions. It makes you wonder if we'll ever truly know what happened to Flight 370. But I know there are theories, attempts to understand something that seems impossible to understand. What are some of the explanations that investigators have looked into?
Well, one of the biggest theories is about it being intentionally diverted. Evidence suggests someone might have purposely turned off the communication systems and steered the plane off course. This makes you think about hijacking or even a rogue pilot. Pretty scary stuff.
That's terrifying. But did those big investigations into the crew and passengers show anything about a motive or a particular person? Were any red flags missed?
Sadly, no. Even after looking really closely, they couldn't find any real evidence of foul play. The motive, if there was one, is still a mystery. This just makes the pain and frustration worse for the families who are dealing with not knowing what happened.
It's like running into a wall. We have these scary possibilities, but no real answers. I've also heard about the idea of a catastrophic failure. Could some sudden mechanical problem or a fire have made the crew unable to fly the plane, leaving it to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel and crashed? Seems like the most likely explanation, but something about it just doesn't feel right.
I think you're right to question that. That theory could explain why there was no communication, but it doesn't explain why the course changed so much. Why would a plane with a technical issue suddenly fly in a completely different direction? It's one of the many things that haven't made sense in this investigation.
It seems like every answer leads to more questions. This must be incredibly frustrating, not just for us, but especially for those directly affected by this. But there was one piece of actual evidence that gave a little hope, right? A piece of the plane that washed up far away.
Yeah, back in 2015, a flaperon, a part of the wing, washed up on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. They were able to confirm this piece was from Flight 370, which finally proved that the plane did crash somewhere in the massive southern Indian Ocean.
Finding that piece must have been bittersweet. It confirmed what happened, but also showed how big the search area was. We're talking about an area larger than some countries, right? It's hard to imagine looking for something so small in such a huge space.
You're absolutely right. The search area was a whopping 120,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than the whole state of California, and underwater. Even after all that searching, they only found a few more pieces of debris, kind of like the flaperon. The main wreckage, the thing that could really tell us what happened to Flight 370, is still out there somewhere.
It's like the ocean is keeping its secrets.
Yeah.
The official investigation ended in 2018 without a definite answer, but I bet there are still people talking about conspiracies and cover-ups. It's really hard to accept that something that big could just vanish.
Well, it makes sense that people would look for other explanations when there are no real answers. We always want to know for sure, especially when something so unsettling happens. Not knowing makes people speculate, and the huge search area just adds to the mystery.
I think it's important to remember that for the families on board, this is more than just a mystery. It's a constant source of pain and unanswered questions. Finding answers isn't just about curiosity, it's about finding peace and understanding after something unimaginable has happened.
You're right. We have to think about the people involved when we talk about these mysteries. For those who lost someone, Not knowing and not having closure is a terrible thing to carry. While we talk about theories and explore the unanswered questions, we can't forget about the human cost of these tragedies.
Okay, so we've looked at these two incredibly confusing disappearances, hundreds of years apart, but both able to stump even the smartest people. I'm starting to see some connections between them. They both involve a large number of people vanishing completely, leaving behind just a few clues and a lot of speculation.
You're right. And both cases show how limited evidence can be and how frustrating it is to have so many unanswered questions. They make us face the fact that some things might never be fully explained, even if we try our best to put the pieces together.
It's almost like these events are taunting us, reminding us that no matter how hard we try, there are still forces and events that we just can't understand. It's definitely humbling.
It is. These mysteries make us think about our need to understand the world around us, to find reasons and explanations for things that seem to happen randomly. They challenge our ideas of order and predictability, reminding us that the universe still has secrets that we might never discover.
But isn't it amazing how these mysteries, even though they're tragic, still capture our imagination? They've inspired so many books, documentaries, and discussions online. It's like we're drawn to the unknown, like we have to try and solve things that can't be solved.
Absolutely. These events remind us that even with all our progress and our desire for knowledge, there's still so much we don't know. It reminds us that the world is still full of wonder and mystery.
Okay, so we've talked about the mysteries, the theories, the unanswered questions, but these disappearances aren't just about the mystery itself. They've also caused some really important advances and changes, right? I'm thinking about the effect on technology and safety procedures.
That's right. Look at Roanoke, for example. The ongoing search for clues on the island has helped improve techniques in archaeology. It was a big part of developing ground-penetrating radar, which is used to find hidden things underground. This technology lets archaeologists see below the surface without messing up the site, maybe revealing things that would have stayed hidden forever.
So the search for answers in one mystery has given us tools we can use for so many other archaeological investigations, maybe even changing what we know about the past. That's an amazing impact. What about Flight 370? Have there been any changes or developments because of that tragedy?
Yes, the loss of Flight 370 led to big changes in the aviation industry. There was a push for real-time tracking technology, which makes it much harder for a plane to disappear from radar. There were also demands for stricter safety rules to try and prevent anything like this from happening again.
It's like using what we've learned from these terrible events to make things safer and stop it from happening again. It shows how resilient we are and how determined we are to learn from even the most painful experiences.
I think that's something important to learn from these stories. While they might represent the unknown and things that seem impossible to figure out, they also remind us that even when these things happen, we can still learn, adapt, and keep trying to understand and be safer. It shows we can find meaning and purpose, even in the face of tragedy.
So what does all of this really mean? If we try to boil these confusing events down to their core, what are the most important things for our listener to take away?
I think it's pretty clear that Roanoke and Flight 370 are more than just interesting stories. They show us the limits of what we can know, how much we're drawn to the unknown, and the huge impact these events have on our search for knowledge and safety. They make us think about the boundaries of what we know, and to accept that some things may never be completely explained.
It's humbling, but also, in a way, pretty exciting. It means there are still things out there waiting to be discovered, explored, and understood. But even with all the theories and investigations, these mysteries are still unsolved, leaving us with way more questions than answers. What do you think our listeners should think about as they keep thinking about these cases?
I would tell them to think about which theories make the most sense to them, which possibilities seem the most believable. Are there parts of these mysteries they would want to investigate more if they could? It's all about really thinking about the mystery, not just listening to the information, but really trying to understand the possibilities and coming to their own conclusions.
I like that. It's about staying curious and never losing that sense of wonder. It's a reminder that even the most confusing mysteries can make us look closer at the world around us. We've covered a lot today, traveling through time, across continents, but before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one more question for you. If you had all the resources you could ever need, and you could investigate one specific thing about either Roanoke or Flight 370, what would you pick? What makes you the most curious?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I'd focus on finding more physical evidence from the Roanoke colony. Think about it. What if we found what was left of their settlement? Or personal items that show us what their daily lives were like? maybe even their remains. Those discoveries could change everything we thought we knew about them and give a sense of closure, not just to historians, but to the families of those who disappeared all those years ago.
That would be amazing, to actually hold a piece of history, to feel a connection to those people lost to time. It'd be like finally completing a puzzle that's been missing pieces for centuries. What about you with Flight 370? What would you be most excited to explore further?
For Flight 370, I'd want to find those black boxes. They hold so much information, like recordings from the cockpit and all the details about the flight. If we could get those back, we might finally get the answers we've been looking for. We could hear what happened, the sounds, the important moments that might explain why the plane disappeared. Maybe even why, if someone made it happen on purpose.
It would be like hearing the last chapter of a story that was never finished. But finding those black boxes with how huge the search area is and how difficult deep-sea exploration is, it's like trying to find a tiny needle in a giant haystack, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, but not completely impossible. Underwater technology is getting better all the time. They're making smarter robots, sonar systems, and deep-sea mapping tech. Maybe one day they'll find those black boxes and finally give some closure to this mystery.
It shows that even when things seem impossible, human ingenuity and never giving up can win in the end. But right now, we're left with these powerful, unanswered questions. As we finish up our deep dive, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's this: embrace the mystery. Let these cases make you more curious, make you want to learn and explore more. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to question what you think you know, and to see things from different sides. Trying to find answers, even if we never do, is a journey worth taking. It's about looking into the unknown, accepting that we don't know everything, and finding wonder in those things we don't understand.
That's a great way to put it. Embrace the mystery. As you go about your day, let these mysteries stay in your thoughts. What parts of these stories stuck with you? What questions do you have? And maybe, just maybe, it'll make you want to do a little investigating of your own.
And you never know. Maybe you'll be the one to find a new clue, a new way of looking at things that helps us understand these mysteries a little bit better. What's amazing about these stories is that they belong to all of us. They're part of being human, a reminder that the search for truth and understanding is a journey we're all on together.
So as we finish this deep dive into the world of the unexplained, remember to keep that sense of wonder alive. Embrace what you don't know and never stop looking for answers, even when they seem impossible to find. Thanks for joining us on this trip into the heart of mystery. We'll see you on the next episode, where we'll be exploring another fascinating topic that will make you think, learn, and maybe even lose a little sleep. See ya!